fans against fans, critics against critics.
Batman versus Superman. Zack Snyder versus the WB.
Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria.
Spoilers.
This is our Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Swing!
So, Batman vs. Superman. That's pretty much all we need to say. Split critics, well, not even split, they're mostly all negative.
Majority negative, yes.
And the audience seemed to like it. I mean, what the scores were...
29% critics on Rotten Tomatoes, 71% for the audience.
Man, it really dropped.
Yeah, and yet they gave Superman Returns a 71%.
Which I really enjoyed Superman Returns for what it was, but...
Nostalgia.
Yeah, that's all it was just taking us back to something that we liked before.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Zack Snyder had to create an entirely new universe just based off of one Superman movie. I mean, it's a pretty daunting task to do for really anybody, except for, you know, Joss Whedon.
Well, getting into Zack Snyder, I am not a fan of his. I don't really like any of his films. Barely liked Man of Steel. But that being said, I walked out, my first impression was walking out of the theater after seeing this. I loved Batman vs. Superman. I loved it.
I as well love Batman vs. Superman. My name is Robert, and I love Batman vs. Superman. I didn't know what the feeling was coming out. Even in a previous vlog that we did for it, I said it was weird. That was the first thing I said when I came out of the auditorium. I said, it's weird. But I didn't mean it's weird, the movie's weird. It was weird what I felt coming out of the movie, which was just entertainment, and I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Not so much. I liked it, but that's the extent of it, basically.
How much of the movie, though? I hear a lot of people got bored and lost. Not lost that you didn't know what was going on.
Didn't get lost.
No, just it lost your attention. It lost your focus for a little bit.
There was a couple scenes that took me out of the movie, and then it took a while for it to get me back in the emotion of the movie. And so that stop and go motion, like, it almost gave you like whiplash, because you're like, what? Like,
I disagree.
What I felt.
The very beginning, it hooked me.
I would agree, though. The very beginning with the whole tying in Man of Steel, I went in there looking at that. I'm like, all right, this is awesome. I'm ready to go, because that whole scene I loved.
It's fun seeing a different version, different side of what was going on from the previous film.
Yes.
That's exactly how I felt about it. I mean, being able to see the perception shift, and we get to see what somebody else was experienced through the same event. It just throws it back to me to like Back to the Future with Marty McFly in a different location at the same time that he's there traveling back in time.
Yep.
But at least it opened up the world that we already knew with Man of Steel, which I also was not a huge fan of. So Bruce Wayne headed back to Metropolis as fast as he can, taking the chopper hopper across the bay to get to his family, his friends, the people that he loves, admires, and respects the hell out of, which are his employees. And that's how Bruce Wayne is. And being completely helpless, not being able to save all these people, at least knowing that something bad is on its way, and trying to do what he can to get them out. Batman just came right out. That survival instinct, that hero of Batman just came out of Bruce Wayne in that moment.
Yeah, I really liked that scene. That it brought me in and got me hooked. I was like, all right, this is going to be awesome, because we're seeing it from a different point of view. We're seeing it from Bruce Wayne's point of view, which is really cool.
It almost had one of those 9/11 type of feels to it, because you saw everyone stopped and watched the plane hit the craft, and buildings collapsing with the dirt running around. And I liked that. I liked Bruce Wayne as Batman ran in there without fear, didn't stop or nothing until he couldn't see anything. And I think that just really brought the movie, set it up for what I'm going to start seeing and feeling. I think it was great.
Definitely grounded it in reality, kind of hit close to all of us, and definitely made it feel more real, which pretty much I felt the movie kept doing, and maybe that could have been something that people kind of had a disconnect with, because it got very real very many times throughout this movie. But that opening scene...
Especially the part where one of his employees are in the building, and you just hear that him, like, I guess praying because he knows what's about to happen.
My favorite part of that entire scene is when that guy, I don't remember what his name is, Dan or whatever, I think it was Dan, was in the building, and he told everyone, the boss wants us out, we get out, and he stayed up there, and he looks out the window, and you just see, boom, right into the building below him, and then that's when the lasers start cutting, and he pulls out his rosary, I believe, and starts doing this little prayer right before he goes. Like, that part for me was huge. And the music, the score at that time, This Is Their War, I believe is what it's called, just nailed it when that building comes down and Bruce is just helpless staring at his team just go down with it.
Being helpless, because when he even runs up, sees Wally underneath there, and that little girl, just all of that whole scene really set the tone of why he can't stand Superman.
Great job.
Yeah.
Especially when Superman is flying down and he's pushing Zod through the atmosphere with all the other stuff, and that look of hate looking at Superman coming down. And that's where I bought it. I get why he would go after Superman. Yeah.
So after that, what kind of characters do you guys like? Like, who did you want to see more of?
Can I save mine for last, please? Can I save mine for last?
You can go first.
Well, I'm a purist, but I did like Superman still. I think his lines were cheap, and I don't blame that on Henry, because I think he did an amazing job playing Clark Kent. But the lines were kind of cheesy, but I still think he pulled them off amazingly and was awesome. He's my favorite character.
Mine will be a secondary character who is very supportive. Alfred. Alfred Pauly was my favorite character of this whole movie. He was very, like, sassy, and just the way that's another reason why I like the show Gotham, is because of Alfred. And Alfred is like this kick butt, like, oh, I'm gonna help Bruce Wayne, and this is kind of how Jeremy Irons brought Alfred too. And I'm like, he's like the mechanic, he does all of the tech stuff. You see him like working on the microphone, he's like, oh, it's fine, like, he is with Batman, he's a part of Batman. Without Alfred there is no Batman, and I loved it.
And I love that Jeremy Irons didn't have a stutter in this film.
Yes.
Not for a lack of trying. I thought he did a great job as Alfred, and I loved him. And Henry Cavill, like I said, Man of Steel, I wasn't a huge fan of Man of Steel, but I loved Henry Cavill in it.
Yeah, I think he was a really good...
He perfectly cast for me. Brandon Routh actually would probably be perfectly cast. I felt like he got a bad roll of the dice, but Henry Cavill for sure did a great job. Mine, Lex Luthor, absolutely, Alexander Luthor. He is my perfect villain. Now, by perfect villain, I mean he is everything that I was expecting him to be before I went in to watch it. Lex Luthor, for me, has always been kind of... I understand why he's going up against Superman. It's always been that brains versus brawn, that knowledge versus power. But I kind of got tired of the Gene Hackman, the Kevin Spacey. Just even on the Adventures of Superman and Lois and Superman, I believe it was, the cartoon, the animated series, but for Superman. Like, I didn't care about Lex Luthor on that show. I cared about all the other villains, but Lex Luthor was no Joker to me. I always want to see Batman go up against a Joker. I didn't want to see Lex Luthor go up against Superman. I wanted Brainiac, or I wanted Darkseid. I wanted somebody else. And for me, when this Lex Luthor showed up, for me it was his dialogue, just how he approached the character. Man is a genius. And for me, it always feels like he is one step ahead of everybody. And even in the word usage that he does, for instance, when he said to the senator, oh, you're in the hot seat now, Senator, before she blew up, when he goes and he says to Batman...
when he says it to Superman.
Superman.
Yeah. He's like, Mother of God, look at the time. Because he looks at Superman as some sort of god.
Deity. And Mother of God when he's referencing Martha. And the Martha, Martha, Martha. But my other one was the rabbit says you are late, silly rabbit. No more tricks.
Yeah, well, I liked it when he was talking to the senator's guy or something, the defense guy.
Yeah.
And he's all talking to him and saying, well, what do you need? What's your wish list? And he goes through that whole thing, and he's like, well, I want the ship in the body of Zod. The General Zod? Okay. Like it was his idea. It was great.
I do like the way that they cut that scene. And with the music and him, like, telling him what he wants, and then you see him that he's already walking through the ship. I did like that, and especially the music at that scene, that like symphony almost, and I was like, I really enjoyed that.
For sure, the music. That's my favorite track on the album is him and Wonder Woman's as well.
I loved her soundtrack.
Mine as well.
I've always said I think Ben Affleck will make a great Batman, and I was right. I think he did an amazing job as Batman.
When I first heard that he was going to be Batman and Bruce Wayne, I didn't agree with it. I thought it was like, meh, Ben Affleck, okay. That, like, I didn't know what to think. Essentially,
it's bringing too much Ben Affleck to it. Maybe?
Yeah, a little bit is what I thought, because I'm just thinking, oh, the character from Chasing Amy or
Daredevil,
Holden McNeil.
Yeah, so it's just, but
he does bring a lot of past.
I think that he is. I love the way that he portrayed Bruce Wayne, like a grittier, darker, older Bruce Wayne that we've never actually seen on screen before, and it's awesome. We've only seen it in the comics and the Dark Knight Returns and all that stuff, and I thought that he brought and portrayed it onto screen very well.
And then partnering up with Alfred as well, Jeremy Irons, they were a perfect duo. Can't wait to see what the storyline was with, his Robin, Jason Todd. What's going on?
I think it is Jason Todd, and I think they're taking it from the book of My Family Values.
We'll get into more speculation when we get to the future of this franchise. But what about that one characteristic trait that Batman showed in this one? Breaking his one rule.
I'm okay with it, because there's a scene in the thing where he's talking to Alfred, and he's saying how many good guys are left, or how many of them stay that way. And I feel like he's been through so much stuff in his time as Batman that he realized that it's taking a toll on him, and he can't no longer take it, I guess, essentially. Not for a lack of trying.
Yeah, harder to put them down.
Yeah.
They don't stay down as long anymore.
There's also another scene where he does talk about, he's like, when one bad guy falls, another one takes his place.
It's like a weed.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I was happy that he went back to the killing people. I think Batman treats it almost like the way the Predator treats it. That if they are going to come at you and it is you or them, he will choose himself and obliterate whatever the offense is. So he does that in the movie. There are many times when he just captures people and beats the shit out of them. But when they try to kill him, they start shooting at him. If he can disengage them, sure. But, for instance, when he's in the bat plane and he's coming down and the dudes just start blasting at him with their freaking 50 cal on the back of the truck, boom, 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 they're just gone. I mean, it's you just fired on him and he's going to fire back. So I'm so happy they did that. Like Keaton's Batman, Tim Burton. Tim Burton did the same thing. He just came in and everyone with the bat plane because they were killing people. They were massacring people with the gas on the streets of Gotham. So I'm glad he went back to that way of killing. But I know did you have an issue with Superman killing in the first one?
That's why I didn't like Man of Steel.
Okay.
Because it was against Superman in general. He always would fight. No matter who he was fighting, he would take it away. And they did that with this film. With Doomsday, he took the fight away, and I think that made me very happy. But I felt the same thing with Batman. He was kind of crossing the line a little bit, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But I do see what you're saying. I didn't complain when Batman, but I don't know. I'm okay with what he did, but I don't agree with it.
I was happy with it. I liked it because it kind of reminded me of Arkham Knight, the video game, when he just destroyed everybody he just destroys them with the Batmobile. It's overly destructive, collateral damage. You're wrecking cars and shooting people with your little electro guns and stuff.
Although, when you're playing the Arkham Knight game, side note, he doesn't actually kill people with Arkham Knight thing. He,
shocks them.
Yeah, he shocks them.
You've seen what happens to those cars in Arkham Knight. They did. They did. They're gone. They're not coming back. Or when this is someone and they fall off a bridge and just go and land on the floor, they're gone. Deceased. When you look at it with the little goggles, deceased.
But I digress.
So what went wrong? I had a hard time figuring out what went wrong just because of my experience with it. But I am one of the few. What went wrong?
There's a lot, to me personally, I thought that went wrong. I thought that a lot of the cutscenes, a lot of the editing was very choppy and very fast. Like, you would be at one scene and then it would cut right back to another scene and it would go right back to what you were just watching. And I felt like maybe they should have took it out a little bit more before you went on to another scene. And then I felt like just some of the scenes shouldn't have been there. Like, it took me out of the movie.
Are you talking about like the dream sequences?
Not so much the dream sequences as more as the cameos. Is what.
Okay, so get into that, the cameos.
Well, the part where she is at the hotel and she's looking at all of the stuff and she sees all the cameos, that took me out of the movie.
Oh, you mean like the Flash, Cyborg?
Yeah.
Wonder
I
Woman.
thought that they could have maybe used that later on in the movie towards the end when they finally say, hey, we need to fight together. And then we need to find these other metahumans. And then I felt like maybe they could have cut to where you see them all. But I felt like that part was like right smack in the middle of everything that is going on. Like, you see Batman getting ready for his fight for Superman, and then this happens, so she's kind of just chilling there. I'm like, oh, okay, like.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the end of the second act before they get into the third act of the film. It's a good way.
Yeah,
Even Rocky had to prep before he went up against, any of his villains.
Let's get this information out
King
now so we
Hippo.
don't have to worry about it later.
Yeah, but I feel like they should have waited.
I also feel like they didn't have enough time. I felt like they really needed to play catch up with DC.
Yeah.
That's probably why they did it the way they did.
Yeah.
Although I do have to say, Aquaman's was awkward. The whole.
Took way too long. That one I think should have been shortened as well. For sure.
Yeah.
I
Just
feel
some
like all of
eyes
them
and
should have been
poking out the
shortened.
camera and swimming away. That would have been
Like
awesome.
the whole thing at Star Labs too, I felt like that could have been shortened too. Like, it took forever for that one too.
I disagree, because Cyborg is not going to get his own movie. So it's a good way to kind of just start up showing quickly what he had to go through.
Yeah, but I feel like they could have either waited for that in another movie. Like, they didn't have to put it in this movie because I don't know. For me, it took me out of the movie.
But another thing that a lot of people complained about being out of place, even though I thought they fit in really well, was the dream sequences.
Oh, the whole bad dream sequence at the beginning with his mom and dad, I felt like that shouldn't have been in there. I don't know, it felt very Nolan-esque too when he fell down the well.
Although it portrayed a different version of Thomas Wayne. He wasn't really a victim this time, but more...
He was Negan.
True, but how many times do we
squeezing
have
his
to see
wrist.
them
Right,
die?
but it started off like a sequence, but I didn't think it was a dream sequence until he started flying with the bats. That kind of threw me off for a loop.
Yeah.
I get that.
And then the whole scene with in the desert and everything is gone down the drain. I get that. I get that it's supposed to be one of those
I have theories on that, and I think we should talk about that in a moment.
Okay. But I just felt like that was out of place a little bit too, but I get it. You're trying to catch up. You try to get people on board for the next couple of movies. So I get why you put it in there, but I don't know. I just felt like that. And then, speaking of that, when they did that dream sequence and then they brought back to Bruce Wayne and then all of a sudden you see Flash. Don't get me wrong, the Flash cameo was awesome. I thought that they did that very well. It was like, oh my god, they're going to show us a timey-wimey kind of thing. But I felt like they should have waited for that cameo later, or they shouldn't have put that dream sequence with the Flash cameo, because then it felt like, wait a minute, he's still dreaming.
What do you think about the dream sequences?
The dream sequences. Now I'm going to shift this over into what I think they did right with the dream sequences. When I first saw that opening sequence with Bruce Wayne falling down the well and coming back up, I felt like they did a scarier version of what Nolan's went through. When he's looking through that crack and you see all the bats there and their eyes are glistening and then it's just boom! I would have been freaking out more than with the other kid, it was just the bats, normal bats. It was reality, where these ones seemed a little supernatural to me, way scarier in my head. And then when they go and start, immediately he kind of gets over it and then they start lifting him. At first I was like, no, I don't want that. But then I was like, oh, what if Batman was a little more supernatural, where he could control the bats somehow? He did kind of have this symbiote relationship with the bats around him, and that's why he always uses them to attack. It's not some sonar thing he throws in and they go and follow it. It's actually they have this connection with him. But then it was like, and then I dreamt, and I was like, oh, okay, it's just a dream sequence. But I'm glad they kind of got that whole Martha Wayne and Tom Wayne thing out of the way. I mean, it's over. We got a little taste of it. We get to see his origin story, but in a quick glance. But you're right, we're gonna see it every time. That's just kind of comes with it. It's new Batman. See how his played out. As for the Nightmare, I have my theories on what I think the Nightmare is. I know our theories are fairly similar. What's yours?
My theory is it's not a dream. It's a premonition. And the premonition goes to, if you know your comic books, it goes to the Injustice Gods Among Us comic books, which is also based off the game where it started. And if you don't know the storyline, a quick storyline is the Joker set off a nuclear bomb in Metropolis, killing everyone. He tricked Superman into killing Lois Lane, who was pregnant with their kid. And then Superman just loses it, kills the Joker, decides to set up this giant world order where he's the head of it. And I think that's the guys with the Superman arm or symbols on their arm are there. They're there to take out Batman because Batman is a threat. And I don't think that was a dream. It's a premonition, and I think the Flash coming in so quick and early and saying, oh, I'm early. Oh, well, you were right about him. And it all starts with Lois. I think that's setting us up for that. And I'm thinking maybe, jumping a little ahead here, but with the death of Superman, he's going to come back, and something's going to happen that way.
He's going to come back under control? Or he's going to
not
come
control.
Back. Is that their way of kind of shifting, of throwing in a little bit bizarro Superman? Maybe he's not going to be our Superman. He's going to be just a different, darker, he went to death and came back type Superman.
Well, if we talk about this, we'll go back into the comic books. The death of Superman, Doomsday killing him. When he's dead, in the books, Jonathan Kent was still alive, and he actually went to the underworld to bring him back. So how they're going to bring back Superman this time around, I don't know. And it could be a bizarro type of thing, but I don't think it is. I think they're going to go into something else, and it's going to be the real world, and Flash is going to have to come back and set things straight, like the Paradox books that he had to go through. Something similar to that.
See, and that was what I was really excited, was it did get really timey-wimey when the Flash came in. And the fact you said you didn't like that they were so close together, I like that they were throwing in dream sequences here and here, and then when that one happened, you think it's a dream sequence because it's just so crazy and out of this world. Why would it be? But also, why would there be the Omega symbol imprinted into the ground? Like, it's just not something that somebody would dream. So I highly agree that Flash splintered when he entered in through that timeline. He projected whatever that premonition was into Bruce, and he got to see everything that is coming their way if they don't alter it. However, I don't think it'll ever get to that level. I think they're just showing us what the actual end game is if things don't get fixed by the Justice League. And we'll get to a level of it, and they'll try and prevent it up to a point, and they know that's the end game if everything goes to shit. But I don't think it's going to go to shit. I think they will get to a point where they end up stopping Superman from going full bad guy.
But see, they're making the Joker crazy enough, and I've said before, I'm not a big fan of Jared Leto as the Joker. Said it. I stand by it. But I think they're making him crazy enough that he might be one willing to set off a nuclear bomb and trick Superman to kill the one he loves.
Wouldn't they alter the timeline, though? Because I don't think they would carry that all the way through.
We don't know where DC's going.
We don't know. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know for sure. But obviously, what also went right, the dream sequences, I think that there is just some good to them. I really enjoyed their placement. I thought they fit very well. I was kind of thrown off a little bit by the Superman with his dad up in the mountain, but then I fell into it. I was like, oh, okay, he's been through a lot. Why wouldn't he just have an inner monologue with his father up on a mountain somewhere where
it's his fortress of solitude?
Yeah, that wasn't even here this movie, was it? I didn't even think of that. That's why it's not Man of Steel 2. It's its own thing. But we already said Batman, one of the best things to come out of this movie, and Wonder Woman.
Yes, I loved Wonder Woman. I thought that she was portrayed very well. Although I would have waited for her entrance later in there. I thought that maybe they could have shown her coming, and right at the part where Doomsday is about to get Batman, like she was there, and I felt like she should have waited to, like, they should have waited for her to be there, and then you're like, oh dang, it's Wonder Woman. I mean, even though we already knew she was going to be in the movie, but I felt like maybe if they waited then, because I remember watching it and I was like, oh, that would have been awesome if they just waited for her to be there, and then she's there, and you're just like, yeah, but
The music.
yeah, her music,
Doom,
and then she like flies. One of the other things that I absolutely loved about it is that she uses her shield, she uses her short sword, and then she uses her lasso. Oh, that was so awesome. I loved that part.
Yeah, made her cutting his limbs off and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They made her good.
Very Captain America to me. I love it. That's that origin. I'm so glad we get to go back to.
I'm actually happy they're going with the World War I story versus
Yeah.
the World War II story. Because we've been there with Captain America.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see how they're going to play it out with Colonel Travers and
Chris Pine. So happy he joined the club. Decided to join up in the DC world. It's pretty awesome. But Wonder Woman coming in, leading to that fight. The big fight, the big throwdown that they were setting us up for the entire time. Batman versus Superman.
Again, sorry, but again, I thought that scene wasn't like the whole time that they did that scene. I felt like they forgot about it being Batman versus Superman. They're like, oh wait, we gotta put that in the movie because the movie is called Batman versus Superman. And I felt like that whole, like, it was a waste of time. I mean, it was kind of cool to see them like fight, and you see Batman like actually take a punch or give a punch to Superman, you know, the Man of Steel. But I just felt like it was too rushed, and then like, don't even get me started on at the end of it.
See, but with that fight too, one of the big things I wanted to see was how Batman held up in that fight. And Batman's absent for majority of the fight because I mean he just can't compete in that battle right
he never was able to.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I was all excited too when he jumped up against the wall and does the grappling hook and launches off. Like, I was hoping we were going to get some Batman rooftop action with, you know, dead Doomsday coming for him. But he goes and he jumps off the thing and he goes to the next building and he lands in the emergency freaking ladder, the fire escape. And I was like, oh, come on, like, that was it, we got one, and then he's all, and he falls over. But I do love that he came back with his sniper skills.
Yeah.
Which I don't think it'd get that long of a distance on that thing. It was pretty much up close buckshot type deal. But yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed the fight immensely, just because it was.
Yeah, the
quick.
ending fine was good.
I liked the fight because it was just back and forth. Everyone got a little bit of Doomsday.
It's just
well,
that.
you're talking about the fight with Doomsday and everyone. You're talking about the fight with Batman.
Right, I'm talking about the fight about Batman versus Superman.
I liked it because what more can you expect? This is a mortal man against a god. And Batman did hold his own. He figured out kryptonite is what's going to take him down, and he uses the grenades. He uses that. He was ready to kill this.
You're
man.
right. It was kind of cool to see him use his gadgets like Batman does. But I felt like it was too rushed, it felt like I said.
What would you have liked to see?
I felt like they should have dragged it out a little bit more, and then the whole part at the end where he's like, you need to, like, right before he's about to kill Superman, he's like, you need to save Martha, and then he's like, what? Why did you say that name? And then all of a sudden they're like, did we become best friends because both our parents both our moms are called Martha?
See, I see that one a whole different light. Like that, I just view that whole scenario completely differently. The way I see it is that at that point, Bruce Wayne was ready to just lay waste to Superman. He was about to bring it down on him, and what it was when Amy Adams comes running, first he says, Martha, like, you gotta save Martha, and it was just the fact that it caught him off, and he wanted to hear, what do you mean? Why did you say that name? And that's why, it's like, why? What do you know? Like, what does this have to do with anything? He was still going to kill him. It did not stop him because the name was Martha. It was as soon as Amy Adams came running over, and Lois Lane came running over and said, that's his mother's name. It gave humanity to Superman. Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing that you see throughout the entire movie is that Bruce Wayne is saying, oh, he's an alien. Oh, you're not brave. Men are brave. Like, he keeps telling him that he's just not a part of this world. He doesn't belong. He's too powerful, and he's going to get everybody killed. Too many casualties. But as soon as this happens, he has a mother. His mother's name is Martha. It throws this humanity back into Batman, who Batman is, protecting the people. And when he hears that, the man is crying for his mom, essentially, is what it is. And that's a powerful thing. Someone, the first thing, he's like, my mom, I want, save my mom. Screw me, save her. And he definitely just hits him hard. And that's what I see in that scene. Hit hard, and he just throws the freaking thing, because it's like, what is he doing? This guy was really just doing for it. Although I do agree, it happens really quick. It's like all of a sudden, oh, now we're best friends. It does feel that way. I made you
a promise.
Yeah, and that part where I'm like, we're pushing it a little too far here.
You're not even just saying it. He said, I'm your son's friend.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
How could you tell?
I loved it.
The cape.
The cape. See, it was funny. There were really funny parts in there.
Speaking of the funny, though, I mean, a lot of people are saying it was too serious. Kevin Smith, even Clam, stated that it's too serious. They needed more jokes, like the comic books. I felt it was just right. Like, we all liked the Dark Knight trilogy because it was dark. There wasn't really any humor to it. I think this worked well with it too. I mean, there's fun stuff like Superman just swatting away the Batmobile like nothing.
Is she with you?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I thought she was with you.
Small little quips. I understand writing things. I understand the reshoot they're doing for the Suicide Squad to make it funnier, which it should be, that they're criminals. They say funny things. Harley Quinn.
It's true. Harley Quinn and the Joker, that alone right there, they make the quick little quips, little jokes. I mean, he's called the Joker.
Yeah. And the trailer was fun
name.
too. Yeah. The trailer was really fun too, so I feel like it may not be as fun, and they're like, oh damn, everybody thought it was fun. Better throw some fun in there. Yeah. But, damn.
Well, speaking of other movies, what do you guys foresee that this Justice League is going to come up with, like, going forward?
For me, I'm really excited to see what they do with Flash, just because Flash, the TV show, is so awesome, and I wouldn't mind seeing another Flash in the universe. I don't mind that there's one on TV and
well, let me ask you, what do you think of Isa playing him?
I don't know, because I don't really know who he is. I know that he was a guy that
we're
was
judging by looks. Come
Ezra?
on, looks.
Ezra Miller?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me personally, seeing him, Flash has always been more of a clean-cut, all-American type of person.
Yeah.
Captain America-looking boy.
Right, but now they're kind of making him more into a millennial. And he's, long hair, kind of.
I love that, though.
But
he looks like
it's
a real
different,
person.
and I can see him playing with it good.
I can see it, too. Like, that whole scene again with, like, the milk and stuff, and he's all like, hey, and then he goes, poof, and he comes back, and he's like, I don't know, for some reason that part, though, I just cracked up because it reminded me of Blazing Saddles, where he's like, you want me to see we do it again? Because of his hand. It just reminded me of that, and I cracked up because of it.
I didn't even think of that. Gene Wilder is the Flash.
Yep.
Ezra Miller, I'm definitely excited to see, especially just the progression of his character, because it looks like he's going a little different. Kind of reminded me of a Ninja Turtle when the helmet came up and he had like the
that's
headband.
what it reminded me too.
I was like, it's kind of like a Ninja Turtle, but the way I wanted the Ninja Turtles to look like. But he looked cool, and I was happy he was in the suit as well, and it's all mechanized, and it's awesome. I can't wait to see where they go with it. But that's why I want to get there so fast, and that's why I'm okay with them cramming it all together and not doing the long game, because I want to see it so fast, and I know it's going to take forever. Look how long it took for us to get to Avengers from when we saw the first Iron Man. I mean, it took a long time.
Yeah, but the payoff was awesome in the first Avengers.
It's true.
Not so much in the second, but
And I think that's Marvel has a lot to compete now with DC. DC has a stronger game, and in my opinion, DC is better than Marvel. And I know a lot of you are probably going to get mad with me saying that, but I think DC characters are godlike. That's what makes them great. They've always had strong values, and they're here. Well, Marvel are more humanistic, more relatable.
No, I get that too. I mean, I grew up more with the DC characters, like watching the Batman animated series. I related more to them. I thought that they were more like these kind of thing. And then when you brought into the Marvel, it was more like woo. But I mean, I like both sides. So yeah.
I read Marvel and the Aliens comics and G.I. Joe.
I played with G.I. Joe.
Aquaman, though. Aquaman, I'm excited to see, but it's just going to be so weird. How is the whole thing going to be underwater? Like, is he going to be walking around and hear bubbles and stuff? Or do they have, like, domiciles they go into?
Well, I heard James Cameron is directing.
So none of it will be in the water. It'll be in submarines and
It'll
enclosures
be on
and stuff.
Pandora.
Pandoria.
I
meant to say Pandora.
Pandoria's box.
Not without a subscription.
No, I meant to say Pandora.
Saw a mother box in there too with the cyborg. That was pretty cool. All built into him.
Oh yeah.
And Miles Dyson was the scientist. I don't know how much longer I can hold it. Miles Dyson. That's probably why he didn't do Terminator Genesis. He was like, oh, I'm gonna go to DC. But I not so much. I don't really care too much about Cyborg. But I'm excited to see Wonder Woman and of course Flash for sure. Aquaman. Jason Momoa, awesome guy. He seems really excited. We saw him at Comic-Con last year, or Phoenix Comic-Con, and he seemed really excited to play the part too. So I think they couldn't have picked a better guy for Aquaman.
I mean, as much of cons that I had, I'm like bad about this movie that I had that I didn't really like. I am still rooting for DC to come and show something because Marvel is there, and Marvel's the only thing that we've had right now. I want to see something different with DC, and that's why I'm going to root for them as well. Like, I love both, but I want to see what they can come up with.
I'm really excited to see where they go with their brand. They deserve it. They've only had really Batman successfully in the last 10 years or whatever it is, but a lot of little flops along the way. Green Lantern, but that's actually one.
I mean, granted,
really
Marvel has
to see come into
flops
it if they ever
as
does.
well
They
too.
have to.
Yeah, it's true.
Iron
Very
Man
much,
3.
guys. We appreciate you spending your time with us for our Batman vs Superman spoiler review.
Thank you.
Thank you two for including me this time.
It's your house.
But thank you for letting us use your house.
Movie magic.
And that's how Superman will come back to life.